Welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Jake Gordon and Alex Sword. We have a lot of news on the Falcons to unpack, and let's start with the newest addition of the defensive line. Bud Dupree signs a one-year, $5 million contract, a former first-round pick. He's not going to be a star. Like, none of these guys the Falcons signed are stars. But hey, Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot came out this offseason, and they've said it for about 6 months. We've got to get better across the defensive front. And it's hard not to look at what they do and say, hey, at least they were serious about it. Because this is the first time Falcons have really had money, but this is the first time they looked at their defensive line and said, hey, we are fixing this problem. And I don't know if I want to call it a strength, but if you called it a strength, I wouldn't call you crazy.
Yeah, and this is something that I've been preaching to is that, we saw the Dante Fowler experiment. It didn't work out. One person was never going to fix this defense, and they needed to build a competent stable, a competent rotation of guys that they can trust to get to the quarterback. And then maybe at 8, or even maybe you find a late round gem or somebody, then maybe you get your superstar like that. And I think that's just a much better strategy. And that's what good teams do. It's pretty rare you see a team that's a Super Bowl contender that has one pass rusher, one guy. And if they do, they probably have something like a great secondary or something behind them. It's not, it's not the Falcons. But yeah, I mean, this you could argue this is maybe the most improved group in all of the NFL this offseason is the Falcons defensive line in terms of where they were to where they are now. And they haven't really handicapped themselves with these massive deals to aging, overpaid guys. Bud Dupree, like you said, 1 year, $5 million. I don't really love the player that much, but I love the price tag. I mean, how could that realistically go that wrong? Unless he just does something incredibly stupid and just, gets a late hit on a quarterback to cost the Falcons in a playoff game or something. Really, how could this really go that wrong?
Hey, but if we make the playoffs, I'm not even going to.
Who cares?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. We're at that point. But yeah, I like the pickup. I mean, I think there were better options available, but I don't know what their price tags are. Yeah, I would have liked to have had Leonard Floyd, but Leonard Floyd's not coming to the building for 1 year, $5 million. But I don't think they've really done anything this offseason that I can point to and say this is way too big of a risk. And they should have plenty of money to spend next offseason. And the edge class and receiver class and some of those sore spots, there should be some better guys available. They got the draft coming up. They're set up for best player available. I like it.
Yeah, there's not going to be I'd be willing to wager that there will not be a single double-digit sack guy on this team, but we'll have close to a dozen guys above 5 sacks. And it's going to be a dramatically improved defense as a whole. Bud Dupree is not going to start. I saw somebody saying something about him starting. I still think, you don't spend a second-round pick on Arnold Ebiketie and then still, have him in a rotational role. Similar to what Richie Grant did his first 2 years. He was kind of in a rotation as a rookie, and then last year took his lumps, but he still started, show some flashes. I expect the same thing from Arnold Ebiketie. And yeah, the rotation has life. It's absolutely crazy. We went from, last year we had Abdullah Anderson starting games for us. And this year,
Abdullah Anderson.
All right, he had a good year. Whatever.
Out of all the guys you could have picked,
Timmy Horn had a good year too. But come on, we're talking about Timmy Horn. What are we talking about? And now we got Calais Campbell. Probably, he'll probably start, but he's going to get 50% of the defensive snaps. Like this, all of a sudden turned into a pretty competent group. And those draft picks, like Ogundeji, like, is he a roster lock? Like, he's going to have to come out and fight for a spot now. Like, that 5th edge defender or 6th, depending on what they do, is going to be a fight. So kudos to Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot. I agree with you, Jake. I don't love Bud Dupree, but, it's nothing to scoff at and it's not even $5 million because they were talking about it's up to $5 million. The details haven't been released. So that means their incentives are involved, which, it could be $2 million for this year or $3 with the rest incentivized. So it's probably even a better deal than we think it is. And if he could stay healthy, talk about a veteran leader, for this younger edge group, good deal all around.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy when you look at just the depth of this defensive line compared to where it was. Even Eddie Goldman coming out of retirement, Calais Campbell, David Onyemata, Bud Dupree, hopefully AK-47 comes out there and develops. And I think AK-47 showed a lot. I think he has the chance to be a very good pass rusher. And if he takes the next step next year, yeah, sure, you'll have to push some of these guys at the back, but that's what you want. And like you said, Jake, most of these deals are for 1 year or are very easy to get out of. And there's a great pass rush class next year for free agency, and the Falcons are going to have $70 million to spend again. I mean, the future of this group looks really bright. And you talk about veteran leaders for D'Angelo Malone, AK-47, like those are some good guys to learn from. And if one or both of those guys take a jump, I mean, you've got a really good group here. And I couldn't be more excited for Grady Jarrett. He's just been basically a gladiator against freaking 8 other guys week in and week out. And you have to think like it's going to be pretty exciting. I mean, I know you said no one's going to get double-digit sacks, and it would be pretty shocking if Jarrett got double-digit sacks. But I mean, you're talking about a guy with Taquan Graham went out there and had like 6 sacks in 10 weeks. Now you got a lot better than Taquan Graham. Respect to Taquan Graham. That's another great piece to the defense that a lot of people aren't talking about. I mean, he had a breakout year last year. He could keep getting better. I mean, Grady Jarrett is a superstar defensive tackle, and he finally has some help. I'm really excited to see what his numbers look like because I think we're definitely in for a career year for him.
And we're not even talking about Caden Ellis, who's probably going to play off-ball linebacker first 2 downs. And then on 3rd down, he's going to be walking all over the line of scrimmage. You know, he showed he had 6 sacks in the last 7 weeks or something like that last year. Yeah, so that's another guy. I mean, it's a really improved group all around, you know, back end on the front 7. It's going to be a much different group, and it's clear what the Falcons want to do. They want to run the ball and play defense, and, you know, I can
win a lot of games in the NFL. Like that is a formula for winning, and there's a formula for winning in the playoffs. And if Desmond Ridder is just an average guy and you have a good draft, I mean, we haven't even gotten to the draft yet. I mean, we don't even know what the rest of this team could look like. And I'm looking at the defense right now, and this is the best defense we've had in a decade. I mean, on paper, like sure, things may not work out, but on paper for the Falcons, I don't even talk about 2017. We had a good defense. I think we had a top defense for the first time in my life. We had a top 10 defense in 2017. That's the only defense that I can think of on paper that is better than this current group. So if these guys show out like they have for their other teams, if Nielsen's legit as a defensive coordinator, I mean, we don't really know that yet. We hope. But, I mean, there's a lot of promise, and we haven't even gotten to the draft yet. So,
well, while we're on the topic of the draft, we got that report today from Matt Miller, Matt Miller, you know, he's okay, that the Falcons would only consider 2 quarterbacks in the top 10, and their quote-unquote dream scenario was to be picking up Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. And let me go ahead and start with Bryce Young because that is a dream because he's going first to the Panthers. I have no doubt in my mind about that. And the Panthers are idiots if they don't take him. Yeah. CJ Stroud's interesting because I think he could fall a little bit. He has the build, he has the look, and you know his last game that we saw him against Georgia, he battled like hell and he really tore up a good defense. But teams in the NFL, strangely, they really value this S2 cognition test, which is kind of like a reflex reaction test, and I think it's pretty highly coordinated with successful quarterbacks in the NFL. And CJ Stroud really didn't do that well on it. And apparently a team that really values that test is the Texans, who pick second. So I don't know. I wouldn't be too surprised if they didn't go quarterback, or maybe they take Will Levis. Will Levis seems like that feels like a Texans pick. Does it not? Like, it just kind of feels like they would do that. But yeah. I don't think just because of this S2 cognition test that CJ Stroud's going to be a bum. There's obviously exceptions to everything, but who knows? You know, Justin Fields came out of Ohio State, same school. He scored really well. Maybe it is a processing thing. Who knows? It is a one-read offense, but I still think they might be in position to get Stroud at 8. And I don't think I would hate that pick either because CJ Stroud is a really talented player.
I don't see any way he falls to 8. In my opinion, I just don't. I mean, the draft always comes out and things change and everyone thinks guys are going certain places and they don't end up. Happens all the time. That could be Stroud. I mean, hell,
Stroud and Deshaun Watson also have the same agent.
Malik Willis was expected to go in the first round last year, and he was like the 4th quarterback taken. He taken in the 3rd round. So this happens all the time. You don't really know what people are, what's smoke and what's fire. I would be shocked if that happened, but hey, if it happens, that'd be awesome. I do think, though, if the Texans do pass on Stroud, who is the expected number 2 overall pick, if he doesn't go number 1 overall, that 3rd pick is open for sale in Arizona.
I think Tennessee's going to go for it too. I think they could pick up Stroud.
But if this report is real, if the Falcons are high on Stroud and they view him as their dream scenario, if this is true, and they don't trade up to number 3 to get CJ Stroud, they are idiots. That's all I'm saying. Because if that is your guy, if that's your dream scenario, and he's there for the taking, you just have to pay for it. You did all this addressing to address your roster, which now looks like a competent roster, and you have a guy who you think it could be your guy. He's your dream scenario. If you do not trade up and get that guy, what the hell are you doing? Like Desmond Ridder, cool. But if this is true, so I definitely think number 3 is on the table. If this is true, because you got to go get your guy. And I don't think he's going to be there at 8. And that spot is wide open for the taking.
I agree with Chase that if the Falcons land either of these guys, and it seems like it'll be Stroud, they'll have to trade up. But I just thought about it. If the Texans pass on him, let's say, I guess it'd be Will Anderson or Jalen Carter would be the pick, I guess.
Tyree Wilson's up there too.
Yeah, whoever it is. And
that would be thing.
Yeah, it would.
Well, that's what Lance Zerline
I hate
said,
this.
man.
Let's
He's
not
plugged
start
into
this.
them.
Let's not start this. God, I hate this. I hate the Tyree Wilson better than Will, whatever. The Cardinals might be able to get more for that third pick if CJ Stroud falls than the Bears got for that first pick, because so many teams are going to be like, oh, I want CJ Stroud. I didn't even think this was going to be a possibility. So I'm curious what that price tag would be. And I agree with you, Chase. Most of the time, if you see a franchise guy, especially, it's quarterback, that's really the only position you have to get right to win a Super Bowl. But if the price is just, you're not going to trade 5 first-round picks for him. He's not Bryce Young. Like, I would trade 5 first-round picks for Bryce Young. He's that good. And I can't even believe people were talking about CJ Stroud potentially going, Anthony Richardson potentially going number 1. Bryce Young led that. Oh, stop. Bryce Young led that Bama team as a true sophomore through like 50 touchdowns and 5,000 yards. I mean, the guy's a freak of nature. He's a can't-miss guy. And CJ Stroud, like Jake said, he proved in that Georgia game he is below him, but he's not that far below him. I just don't see it happening for anything less than that third pick, and it could get really pricey. Who's going to want to trade up? You're going to have 4 teams bidding against
Titans,
each other.
Patriots. Here's what I think about the situation. So, yeah, let's say you go into you draft a defensive stud at 8. Let's say you get Christian Gonzalez, Devin Witherspoon. You get a lockdown cornerback at 8. You fill out the rest of the team with the rest of your picks. Now, let's say you're going into 2024. You have a ton of cap space. Desmond Ridder started all year. They didn't make the playoffs. He's not the guy. Realistically, how much more would it cost to go up to number 1 and get Caleb Williams? If let's say the Texans are picking
Drake
first
May.
again and they have their quarterback, Drake May, somebody like that. I'm more willing to punt knowing what's coming. And the fact that you get the best of both worlds a little bit. You get an evaluation here on Ridder. You get to see what he's made of. You see if this team is ready. You still have money to spend in free agency. You still have good players locked up. And then maybe you say, all right, he's not the guy. We're taking a big swing on a quarterback. This is going to be the team.
Well, listen, I don't think there's any doubt if you don't take a swing this year, and listen, if you don't think Stroud's the guy, this is why I'm hinging a lot of it on being the dream scenario. Because if that's your guy, like if that's a guy that you think is going to be a franchise quarterback,
could also be a smokescreen.
You do whatever. Yeah, you do whatever though. Like that's just what I'm saying. Now I'm fine with this situation where they're comfortable with Ridder. Like you said, they feel it out. They get a good evaluation. They see if he's the guy or not. This team's winning 7 games no matter what. Like
I was going to say that. What is your evaluation of Ridder? Like make the playoffs, not make the playoffs? Like what? Because I think
I think
like in this offense, he's not going to look terrible.
No,
like, he's
going to look. It's got to be like, can this guy have the potential to at least reach like top 10, top 12 quarterback, a guy that could win the Super Bowl? Like, can he get to that point? If he can't get to that point, next year is all in on quarterback no matter what. Because as much as I like what Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot have done, like if you miss the playoffs again this year with the roster that you have, we
would be disappointed now. We would be disappointed now. You made the
decisions not to go after quarterbacks the last 2 cycles. You passed on Justin Fields, who looks like a very good quarterback in this league, especially if he goes out there and has another really good season, improves a bunch. You passed on them. If CJ Stroud goes out there and looks good as a rookie, like you passed on these guys. You made that decision, and we missed the playoffs again. You don't have a choice. Missing the playoffs next year with all the cap space they have is a non-negotiable. Like you are talking about your job on the line if you miss the playoffs again. So I think if you're fine if you believe in Ridder, but these are the things that are the difference between do you have a job or do you not have a job in 2 years. If the quarterback can't get the job done and you miss the playoffs, that's on you. So if you believe that he can get you to the playoffs, that's fine. But that's what you're saying by putting your faith in him. And next year, they're not on the hot seat now, but next year they got to go all in.
Yeah,
if he's
that's
not,
what I was going to say.
Make the playoffs.
I don't think it's enough to get him fired this year.
They won't. No way they're on the hot seat. I'm just saying next year, though.
Next year you would have to make the playoffs. Yeah, you would have to take a big swing. If you got to mortgage the future to go get Caleb Williams or Drake May, I think that's a pretty good idea. And even if you look at some of these teams now, if you want to trade back in this draft and maybe get another first round pick, you never know who's going to be bad. Look at the Rams. Look at the Browns too. I think their 11th pick. Rams is like the 4th pick that's owned by Seattle. 5th pick owned by Seattle. The Broncos pick that went to that was the Broncos pick that went to Seattle. Excuse me. That Rams pick owned by Detroit. They got a pick at 8 or 7, whichever one it is. You get what I'm saying. You never know who's going to be bad. If you trade up with one of these teams and they fall flat on their face next year and you get a first next year, you never know where that first round pick could end up. And even if you don't have it in the top 5, top 10, you can still use it as an asset to move up. Okay, we got 2 first round picks. We'll get you in this draft for 1 and then some future picks. And I don't know. It's just good to have more bullets in the chamber.
I think it's probably safe to assume the Texans are going to be picking in the top 5 again next year, no matter who they land. Like, it doesn't matter who they land. It could be Bryce Young. I feel safe in saying they're going to come away with a quarterback this year, so that might take them out of the running next year, I would assume. But they're going to be in the top 5. I mean, just like the Cardinals were this year. They got Kyler Murray. They don't need a quarterback. Every single year, there's a terrible team that already has a quarterback. And I agree with you guys, or more with Jake, that, next year's class, Caleb Williams and Drake May are Bryce Young-esque, Trevor Lawrence-esque prospects. It's like let's sell out. Let's get them. Who cares if we don't have a first-round draft pick for the next 3-4 years? We got the guy. It doesn't matter. So I kind of agree with you, Jake. Let's just, again, take the best player available and, try and make the playoffs. And then, let's start mortgaging the future.
Yeah, mortgaging the future is that is a very nice idea. Like getting them and mortgaging the future. That may not even be an option though. Like the 2 teams that finished with the worst record could need a quarterback, and we don't even have the opportunity. So now we're looking at the free agent market or who the 3rd best quarterback is. So I think that's kind of like why I don't like to look ahead to the draft, because there's a very good opportunity. The worst 2 teams in the league do need a quarterback.
It's very true. It's very true. And I was just going to say that, no matter what happens, this offseason, regardless of the rumors, Ritter has just been getting shit on. Everybody just feels like he's not a guy. I mean, it was Lamar Jackson. Now it's just like, maybe he comes out and shuts everybody up. Like, what if he comes out and he's like the guy?
Hey, what if? What if?
I'll be happy about it.
I give me a damn quarterback. That's what I've been shouting. Anthony Richardson at 8. Like, I shout this for a reason. I just want a quarterback. I don't care who it is. Just draft me a quarterback every first round until one of them's good.
It's kind of crazy too, because Falcons fans have been blessed. I mean, Matt Ryan was never, he was an MVP that one year, but outside of that, he was never a top 3 quarterback for most of his career. But he was a very stable, good quarterback. Top 10 a lot of years. And the first year without him, everybody's going crazy because we had Marcus Mariota, who was just a shit show. And some of these teams don't find quarterbacks for decades. Think about the Jets. The Browns. Oh my God. The Browns. They had to trade for their guy.
Yeah. It's the hardest quarterback or the hardest position to gauge, hardest position to figure out. And that's why I say that's why anytime an interesting one comes up, I'm like, take him. I don't care. Just take him. Until we find him.
Figure the rest out later.
And you can even go further back than Matt Ryan, because we had one year with Joey Harrington and Byron Leftwich between Ryan and Vic, but then we got the 3 pick and we got Ryan. So it was like Vic, one bad year, figured it out. So we've had a very blessed life of quarterbacks. It hasn't resulted in Super Bowls, but the Falcons have been a competitive team for most of my lifetime, a playoff team for most of my lifetime. And until they get the quarterback situation figured out, they won't be competitive enough. They won't. Even in a bad NFC South, they're not going to be a competitive team.